Okay, Beseda. Right, good. So we're up to Siman Lamed Beis. We're halfway through this long Sif Lamed Vav, and we're talking about how you write the Parshas and the Tefillin. So, if you remember, we're talking about Tefillin Shalyad, and you've got one klaf, and you've got four Parshas. The four Parshas are Kadesh Li, V'hoya Kivyecha, Shema, and V'hoya Im Shemaya. And we said that the first three Parshas, Kadesh Li, V'hoya Kivyecha, and Shema, are Pesuchos, and the fourth one, V'hoya Im Shemaya, is Sesuma. So what does that mean, Pesucha and Sesuma? So if you remember, Eli, you've got it on your picture, but on page 162, in where it says picture number 2, you basically have, imagine, you've got the big klaf. So there, Pesucha means that it begins at the beginning of the line. The first three parshas begin at the beginning of the line, right? And then there's a gap at the end of that paragraph, and then it starts at the beginning of the line. That's called a Pesucha. But the last paragraph, it goes, the third one goes to the end of the line, and the fourth one, V'hoya Im Shemaya, starts in a bit. So that's called Sesuma. Okay, so that's how you write Tefillin. So the Mechaber says in Lamed Vav, let's just read the Mechaber at the beginning from Lamed Vav. Ya'aseh kol Parshiyoseho Pesuchos. You do all the Parshiyos Pesuchos, like I just explained, the beginning of the line. Chutz miparsha achrona ksuva b'Torah, apart from the last one, which is V'hoya Im Shemaya, shehi V'hoya Im Shemaya, she'asena Sesuma. V'im shinan, you get it wrong, apostle, that messes up the Tefillin. It says the Ramah, v'yesh machshirin b'kulam Pesuchos. There are those who are machshir and allow Pesuchos even for the last one. That's what we did yesterday with the Mishnah Berurah on that. Continuing the Ramah of Medinas Elu, says the Ramah, in our Medinas in Ashkenaz, noyagin af parshas V'hoya Im Shemaya b'shita b'reish hashita kashar haParshiyos. The minhag is that we should also put the fourth one at the beginning, i.e. V'hoya Im Shemaya should also be at the beginning. It should also be Pesucha. So let's just do the Mishnah Berurah. Let's do the Mishnah Berurah on that. Kuf Samach of Medinas Elu. V'after lechatchila mitzvah la'aseh sesuma gam le'yesh machshirin. Even though really lechatchila you should do it sesuma like the yesh machshirim. V'imkein haminag hazehu. This minhag, which the Ramah is saying, is to do a pesucha shelo kahagan. That's not really appropriate. Mikol makom here tiku haRamah. The Ramah, however, brings it to kivin sho'ikahu shebediavad kasha b'chol inyan. Since bediavad it's okay. Ve'ef shela'aseh sesuma l'dirakol. But what you can't do is you can't make it sesuma. Yesh la hachazik b'minhag hazeh. One can hold on to this minhag kadei shelo lahotzi la'azav rishonim, not to cast aspersions on the previous ones, on previous tefillin. V'chein kasam magen ram b'shem halechem chamudas av medivrei halavush v'hagra mashma sheyoyse tov la'asos k'ma shekasav b'shulchan aruch. And it's better to do what the Shulchan Aruch says, like we said, that the first three should be Pesuchos and the fourth one, V'hoya Im Shemaya, should be Sesumos. Okay. V'lochein, and therefore, continues the Mechaber, Na'agu sheParshas Kadesh Li, V'hoya Kivyecha, or Parshas Shema, Maschilim Bereshita. Therefore, our minhag is, says the Shulchan Aruch, that the first three Parshiyos we do Pesuchos, i.e., that we start those at the beginning of the line, like I've got in the book, Ubesoif Kadesh Li, and at the end of Kadesh Li, Ubesoif V'hoya Kivyecha, Manichin Cholok, you leave a gap at the end of the line. Yes, so again, you've got at the end of these parshas, you leave a gap at the end of those parshas, there and there, and then you start at the beginning of beginning of the next line. That's called Pesuchos, right? So you leave that gap. You leave that gap. Ubesoif Shema. But at the end of the third paragraph, Ein manichin cholok, you don't leave a gap at all, and that way you leave a gap at the top of the next one and the fourth one, which makes that into a sesuma. Okay, v'manichin hu pachas michdei lichtev tes oisius, and if you leave a gap which is less than 9 letters, that's the gap we're talking about. Uparshas V'hoya Im Shemaya matchilim be'emtza shita elyona, and the fourth paragraph, V'hoya Im Shemaya, you start at in the middle, he says, of the top line. Right, in the top of the fourth one, you leave that gap of 9 letters. V'nimsa sheshloisha Parshiyos heim pesuchos bein Rambam bein Rosh. That means the first 3 are considered pesuchos. Or Parsha Achrona, the 4th and final one, V'haim Shemaya, is Susuma L'das Rambam, is considered Susuma. Okay, let's just do the Mishnah Berurah on that. So we're up to Kuf Samach Aleph. Kuf Samach Aleph. This is going on the Ramah. The Ramah says, Medinas Elu Nagin to do V'haim Shemaya B'reish Shita Kashar HaParshiyos. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Kuf Samach Aleph, V'chein B'Tefillin, Sh'Rabbeinu Tam. This also applies for Tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam. Ya'aseh gam kein kulam pesuchos. Rabbeinu Tam's Tefillin, the 4 parshas should all be pesuchos. Va'af shekosev v'haim shemoya achar shemad. Remember the difference between Rabbeinu Tam and our Tefillin, Rashi Tefillin, is the order of the 3rd and 4th parshas. The Rabbeinu Tam does v'haim shemoya achar shema. Va'af shekosev, even though you write v'haim shemoya achar shema, Kazlakamon, Besimin Dalad, Mishnah Berurah Sifkotin, Yaniach Kashir Tes Oisios Acha Al Haaretz. After the words Al Haaretz, you leave a space of 9 letters. Or Kashakosif Parsha Shema, Maschel B'Tchilas Ha'omad B'Reish HaShita. You then you start that at the beginning of the line, B'Reish HaShita. Okay, now we're back to the Ramah. Back to the Mechaber. So the Mechaber has said, that our minhag lochei nagu, the Mechaber says, shepashas kadesh li v'hayekaviyachon shema maschilin b'reish shita. The first 3 you begin at the beginning of the line because that's pesucha. It says the Mishnah Berurah in Kuf Samach Beis, by beginning at the beginning of the line, that makes it into a pesucha. That on the previous column, you leave the gap at the end. That makes it into a psucha. What if at the beginning we just said that the first 3 should start at the beginning of the line? What if you didn't? You leave a little bit of a gap. Even less than 9 letters. According to the Rambam, this is called susuma. Even a small gap makes it into susuma. And therefore it's no good because the first 3 paragraphs have got to be psuches. And if you leave a little gap at the top of the beginning of each line of those, that's no good according to the Rambam. Because it makes it into susuma. Prima Gadim Kosov, even if you leave a tiny gap, only a very small gap, 1 or 2 letters, Gamken Yeshlem the apostle. It could even be that even that small gap renders it possible, and Tzorechim Bezer. Tzorechim Bezer, that what says the note 190, Shema Sheyesh Loma Shema Bashir Kotan Kazen Nechshav Begedet Tchilas Hashita, and maybe this is considered still the beginning of the line, maybe not. So it's a bit of a question mark. Of a Sefer Maimon Mordechai Mashma, the Ein Lahachmer Bezer B'Diavad. You shouldn't be Machmer B'Diavad. Val Kol Polim Lechatchila. Ideally, yesh li zoy b'zeh ma'od. One should be very careful to get this right and to start at the beginning of the line properly. And if you left a gap enough to write the words asher, 3 letters, aleph shin reish, nearly yesh lachma afilu b'diavad. If you've left a gap 3 letters, that's already considered a susuma. That's already pretty big. Because in that katanos, because in that 3 letters you could write 6 small letters v'yoseh, and therefore that's already considered a significant gap, and that could make it into susumos. And according to Taz, we mitzaref that shit to make it into susuma. Even though we combine to make it a gap big enough to write 9 letters in small. It's a very small amount. If he, for whatever reason, starts in a bit, you got a bit of a problem. What should he do? In other words, imagine, he's got a picture of it somewhere, imagine you start in a little bit, on the top of the paragraph, the 2nd or 3rd paragraph of the first one. So you've got a problem, but you don't want to make it into a susuma. Susuma means you leave a gap at the top before you. So therefore, what do you do if you did write it? How big is that gap? we said, even the Rambam, it could be a very small amount. So if you move in a little bit, the trick for the sofer is, do the next line immediately underneath it. So you've got, in other words, you should write, let's say, over here all the way down, but you go in a bit. So what do? Start the next one in a bit. So there'll just be a bigger border over there. So that will still be a psucha, and therefore it won't be a problem. Okay, Kuf Samach Gimel. This is going on. How much gap should you leave on the fourth paragraph? The fourth one is Sesuma. V'hoim Shema is Sesuma. You leave a gap of 9 letters. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Kuf Samach Gimel. Kasu ha'achronim telachatchila tzorich laniach kedei Gimel Tevis Asher. Asher times 3 is 9 letters. That's how much gap, how much space you should leave before writing the paragraph V'hoim Shema, the fourth paragraph. Al-Kain. Now, if you think about it, if you write the word Asher 3 times, you've actually got more than 9 letters, because you've got a little gap between the first and the second word Asher, and between the second and the third word. So it says in Mishnah Berurah Al-Kain, Tzorich laniach gam kein revach mole beis osis katanas. You should leave a little gap of 2 small letters, milvad hates oisius, in addition to the 9 letters. Because each of between the words of Asher, you got to leave a small gap for a small letter. But the Evid, it's okay if you just did 9 letters. That would be sufficient to make the fourth paragraph into a susuma. Dahanu Yudin. Okay. You measure it according to the other letters that you've written. That's the shir, whether it's for pesuchas or stumas. Okay. Now, then the Mechaber said that pesuchas bein l'ram bein l'rosh, or parsha achrona would be sesumah according to the Rambam. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Kuf Samach Dalet. Sesumah l'das haRambam. Va'af to l'das haRosh hi pesucha. Even though according to the Rosh this would be pesucha, mikol mokom onu eisen kach, we still do this. Ef shel asos. But Tefillin Tzura Sesuma Sheyotze Ba'al Liba Tukulam. It's very hard to do a Sesuma which is across the board, which is good according to everyone. Ki Sesuma She'onu Nagin, because the Sesuma that we do last is B'Sefer Torah. Hainu Shemisayim HaParsha Shelafoneha Be'emsa Shita U'Mafsik Kadei Tesa Ozius V'Achar Masal HaParsha Shachra Gam Kein Be'emsa Shita. In other words, if you think of a Sefer Torah, you've got a line, and then you've got a gap, and then you carry on the line on the same line. That is a classic susuma in a Sefer Torah. Now that you cannot do in a parsha of Tefillin, because you've got 4 parshiyos and you don't leave gaps in the middle, right? That is the classic susuma of a Sefer Torah. It's sort of closed in before and after it. You can't do that with Tefillin because each parsha is on a different column. And if you want to leave a bit of a gap in the beginning of V'hoim Shemoya, and then start in the next line, that is even that is not l'kula alma sesuma. That's only good according to Rosh, but not the Rambam. That it's day psucha, because according to him that would be psucha. The kivin she'ef shlas sesuma l'dirakol nagu karam, and therefore you can't get it right according to both. And therefore we follow the Rambam. Because even in the Sefer Torah, that would be Ein Rish Hey. Yeah, that would be considered the Summa. Now, the Taz, however, gives a suggestion that you can get it right according to everyone. What's his trick? In the first and second parsha, you do exactly like the Shulchan Aruch says. You start at the beginning of the line and then leave a gap at the end. Rak parsha Shema, but in the third parsha, in Shema, B'sofa yaniach revach, you leave a gap at the end. We said you go right to the end, but he says leave a gap, but a gap of less than 9 letters. Pochos michdei tesaisius katanas, 9 small letters. V'chein yaniach revach pochos mitesaisius katanas b'tchilas parsha Shema, and leave a small gap at the beginning of the fourth one, less than 9 small letters. You haven't got 9 full letters on either the top there, the fourth paragraph, or the bottom of the third one. Only by way of joining them together. That would be considered susuma l'kula alma. Ve'obeh hagra, v'chein mashma prima godim, shegam hu noag lasis kein. Okay, v'ada, and no. The b'di'eved, afilu shir revach k'tesoisis. Even if you leave a small gap of 9 letters, of 9 big letters, mikol tzad, gam kein kosher, that would also be okay. The Rambam is stuma, because according to Rambam that's suma. Well, the Rosh pesucha, and according to the Rosh, that is considered pesucha for kasavnu le'el b'sif cotton kufnuchem b'shem achreinim. Tiskimu halacha kayesh machshirin, that we go like the yesh machshirin. The yesh magdolim shenogu lasses kein lechatchila, they do that in lechatchila. The nara poshte, and each river should flow according to its own way. You follow your own minhag, whatever it is. Va'ayin behalacha. So to summarize this, quite complicated halacha, if you open up your Tefillin Shel Yad and you find one big klaf, you hopefully will see, you'll see different practices, but what you'll probably see is 4 paragraphs, I hope. The first 3 are pesuches, which means they start at the beginning of the paragraph, and they leave a gap at the bottom. That makes these into pesuches, but the last paragraph that will begin with that gap at the end, V'hoyim Shemoya, will start in, because that is considered suma. These 3 are pesuches, and the fourth one is the suma. Say that. Okay, we'll leave it there.